may be seated. This morning we'll start with the words of Psalm 15. Not only because they are appropriate and descriptive of Rabbi Kentof, but these were words that he himself read countless times. When he was at a funeral and I asked him to participate, this was usually the psalm that he would read. Mizmor David, the Psalm of David. Adonai, mi yagur be'ohalecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilevavo. Lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l'reyehu ra'ah, v'chirpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivze be'enav nim'as v'tirei Adonai yechabed, nishpal harav lo yamir, kaspo lo natan b'neshech, v'shochad al naki lo lakach, osa'ele lo Yimot leolam. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rate, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. When the hour came for Rabbi Elimelech of Lishensk to depart from the world, he placed his hands upon the foreheads of his 4 disciples and gave them each a portion of his soul. To the Chozeh, the seer of Lublin, he gave the light of his eyes. To the Maggid of Koznitz, he gave his heart. To Rabbi Mendel of Prustik, he gave his mind. To the Apter Rebbe, he gave the power of his tongue. And it was then that he died on the 21st of Adar in 1786. What a way to live so that when we die, our vision in life is worth nurturing. Our kindness still nourishes, our intellect still informs, and death has not stilled the eloquence of our tongue. I'll invite you now to take a quiet moment and think about what Rabbi Kentof has given to you as the Lishenska Rebbe, Rabbi Elimelech, once gave parts of his soul and all that he cared for, he instilled in them. Please take a moment and think for a moment, a gift that Rabbi Kentof gave to you. Im chasid titchasad, im gavar tamim titamam, im navar titparar ve'im ikesh titpatal. Ki ata am oni toshia, ve'enaim ramot tashpil. Ki ata ta'ir neri, Adonai Elohai yagia choshki, ki v'cha arutz gedud, ve'Elohai adaleg shur. Ha'el tamim darko, imrat Adonai tzrufa, magenhu lechol hachosim bo. With the loyal you deal loyally, with the blameless blamelessly, with the pure you act purely, and with the perverse you are wily. It is you who deliver lowly folk, but haughty eyes you humble. It is you who light my lamp. Adonai, my God, lights up my darkness. With you I can rush a barrier. With my God I can scale a wall. The way of God is perfect. The word of Adonai is pure. God is a shield to all who seek refuge. For countless generations, the Jewish people have found comfort in the words of the 23rd Psalm. They remind us that even when we are stunned by reverses and losses in our lives, God remains our shepherd. We don't always know where we are going, and we can't always fathom how we will get there. But we trust in God and have faith in a shepherd that will take us from the valleys shadowed in death and shrouded in darkness. God who will bring us to places of serenity, of quiet pastures and still waters. Psalm 23 will be chanted by Chazan Holzer.
Adonai roi lo echsar binot sheyar bitzeni al mehi menachot yinaleni Nafshi yeshaveh yanacheni v'magle tzedek yanacheni v'magle tzedek l'man shemo kal ki elech megetz al hamavet Lo ira ki ata imadi Shivtecha mishatecha ema yenachamuni Taroch lefanai shulcha neged et tzorerai Di shanta mashem roshi ko usirivaya Atova cheser yedefoni ko yemechayai Vishavati bevet Adonai liorech yamim. The Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thus anointing my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Zot Tfilati, a poem by Hillel Bavli. This is my prayer to you, my God. Let not my spirit wither and shrivel in its thirst for you, and lose the dew with which you sprinkled it when I was young. May my heart be open to every broken soul, to orphaned life, to every stumbler, wandering unknown and groping in the shadows. Bless my eyes, purify me to see humanity's beauty rise in the world and the glory of my people in its redeemed land, spreading its fragrance over all the earth. Deepen and broaden my senses to absorb a fresh, green, flowering world, to take from it the secret of blossoming in silence. Grant strength to yield fine fruits, the very essence of my life steeped in my very being, without expectation of reward. And when my time comes, let me slip into the night, demanding nothing, God, of humanity or of you. Mishemet Rabbi Meir Batlu Moshle Mishalim. Mishemet Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa Batlu Anshe Ma'aseh. Mishemet Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Batel Ziv HaChochma. Mishemet Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Batel Anava v'yirat chet. Talmud teaches when Rabbi Meir died, those who taught by way of storytelling ceased. When Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa died, those who performed wondrous deeds of kindness were no longer. From the time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's death, the glory of wisdom departed. When Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi died, humility and the spirit of reverence ceased to exist. The death of the great sages of the past left gaping holes in the lives of their students. Just as the passing of Rabbi Dov Kentof, Morenu Harav Dov ben Pinchas HaKohen the Chana, has left us, his students, bereft. And that is, after all, what all of us are. We are his students. Some of you may have learned from him in a classroom, in a junior congregation service, on a trip to Israel, or while water rafting. But you, Dov, you were a master teacher with your heart your soul, and your strength. B'chol levavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'odecha. Your curriculum was menschlichkeit and compassion. Your pedagogy, a zest for life, a love of people, and a passionate commitment to Yiddishkeit. To enroll in the Dov Kentof Academy required no more than eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to feel. There are many of you in this room and joining us on live stream who are much more familiar with Rabbi Kentof's memorable approach to experiential Jewish education. Through him, you met Moshe on Har Sinai. And I have Moshe's cloak in my dress-up box in the office, one of my dearest possessions now. Through him, you joined Noah sailing on an ark to the Jacksonville Zoo. It's amazing how much Noah looked like Dov. You learned how to play the knife-throwing game. You conducted night operations in the dangerous territory of our recreational, now the Beth Shalom Park. You traveled with Rabbi Kentof on a fantasy flight to Israel, complete with a make-believe El Al airplane. I don't know if there was bad service from the flight attendants or not, but you did it without ever having to leave the gym. You learned Jewish music by listening to Dov's harmonica around a campfire. You attended junior congregation in pursuit of the coveted Golden Kippah Award. You experienced Jewish life on whitewater rafting expeditions to the Nolechucky River in western North Carolina. Some of you in this room may even remember a time camping when adjacent to your campsite was a non-Jewish troop of girls, and you were embarrassed to put on tefillin. But Rabbi Kentof got you to. Not by arm twisting and ordering you, but by turning it into a matter of pride. And that's always how he traveled. Not by bulldozing, but by the art of persuasion. You did things for him because you loved him and respected him. But in the end, whether you realized it or not, you did it for yourself. I know of these stories and experiences not because I had the good fortune to experience them growing up. I only wish I had. But because over the past 17 years, so many of you have shared memories of those times with such fondness and affection. And through them, I've had the privilege of seeing, even if only vicariously, how one man's creativity, his zeal, his energy and goodness could shape the neshama, the Jewish soul, of so many young people and their parents in our community. One of Rabbi Kentof's favorite sayings was, Dvarim hayotzim min halev, nichnasim el halev. Words that come from the heart enter the heart. And that was the secret, if indeed it was a secret, of Dov's ability to touch people. It stemmed from his authenticity and his sincerity. His warmth and earnest concern were genuine. And that is why the impact he made was neither casual nor ephemeral, but deep and lifelong. My colleague, Rabbi Jacob Lusky, who recently retired after more than 40 years of service to Congregation B'nai Jacob in St. Pete, shared with me, "As I reflect on my life, I am struck by the important role Rabbi Kentof played when I was a U.S. wire at Temple Israel in Charlotte, North Carolina." Svetlana Goldener, who emigrated from the former Soviet Union, said some years ago, "I will never forget my first July 4th picnic. My family had only arrived in this country a few days before. We hardly spoke English, but Rabbi Kentof made us feel so welcome. We will never forget." Now multiply these sentiments exponentially, hundreds, even thousands of times over, and you discern a glimpse of the countless lives touched by this man. Not surprisingly, at this very moment, a group of campers at Ramat Darom are with Rabbi Rosenblum in the hills of North Georgia, watching this funeral service on live stream. Campers including the children of his students. And they too are part of the legacy he leaves behind. It's been some 2 decades since Rabbi Kentof's retirement. In that time, he traveled with Alina, serving as a rabbi on cruise ships many times. For the past several years, together, they led high holiday services in our alternative service, which was always packed. But the truth is that Dov never retired from being Dov. Some take up golf with a passion. Dov just continued to do what he had always done, not formally and programmatically, but his life was about outreach and chesed. Now, chesed, of course, isn't a hobby the way golf is. It's a way of life. And that was obvious to anyone who knew him. There's a reason our synagogue's chesed fund is named the Rabbi Dov and Alina Kentof Fund. How many residents of River Garden did he visit? How many ailing congregants did he call? How many hospital rooms did he enter? How many Shiva Minyanim did he attend? Far too many to count. Dov Kentof was also my friend. He was my teacher and mentor by way of example. If I needed a shoulder or a helping hand, I could always go to him. And there were times when I didn't have to because he would come to me and intuit what was on my mind or just somehow sense that there was something in my heart. Congregational rabbis love their children, but there are times when we are pulled in multiple directions by myriad obligations. And rabbis aren't at home, sometimes when they most want to be. Rabbinic families bear this burden, and Dov understood this from his own years in Jewish education and youth programming. He had more than a share of out-of-town USY conventions, camping and whitewater rafting trips, serving as an advisor on USY Israel pilgrimage. These trips sometimes took him away from his own children. So quietly and unasked, he made himself into a kind of surrogate Saba for my 3 boys, who never knew my father, who died before they were born, and who had lost their other grandfather, Susan's dad, to dementia when they were still young. So who took my children camping? And who gave them pocket knives? Wanted to give them pocket knives. I think they were 7. Susan said no, but eventually they got them. Who taught them how to play the knife-throwing game? Who took my eldest son for lunches, conversation, listening, and God bless him, Dov, let Avichai practice driving behind the wheel of his truck. Even when we weren't prepared to let him drive ours, not our truck, our car. Maybe he did these things out of friendship with me, but no, the relationship that he had with them was entirely and exclusive theirs. The night of Dov's death, my son Elior sent me a text from Los Angeles, and it read, "Could you tell Dov that I've always seen him like a grandfather, and that he's added so much value to my life, and I have such wonderful memories with him, and I love him." Dvarim shabayim me'alev, sheyotzim min halev, nichnasim el halev. Words that come from the heart, enter the heart. Ay, Alina, what a match you made with Dov. What a pair. You were so very different, but his yin was your yang. Maybe it was your yang was his yin, I don't know. But yours was true shutafut, a partnership of an extraordinary kind. Through nearly 60 years of marriage, you were a dynamic duo. Avraham had Sarah, Barak had Dvorah, Rabbi Meir had Beruria, but you had each other. The days ahead will be difficult, but the words of Shir HaShirim remain as true as ever. Ki azah chamavet ahava, mayim rabim lo yochlu lechabot et ha'ahava, uneharot lo yishtefuha. For love is as strong as death. Floodwaters cannot extinguish love. Raging rivers cannot drown it. In a little while, you will also hear from Dov's children and grandchildren. The pride of his life, the apple of his eye. Dov, we will all miss your joie de vie, your zest for living, your ability to find the good in everyone, and the talent for finding the sunny side of even a shadowy street. And because so much of you was given from your heart, so much of you has become a part of our hearts. Perhaps when some great men die, the world focuses on what it has lost. But as we contemplate your legacy, we are determined to focus on what we have gained and shall always keep, because that's the way you lived and that's the way you would want us to live. The day before you passed away, you said, Ezehu Ashir, Hasamech Bechelko, as the rabbis teach in Pirkei Avot, who is rich, one who is content with his lot. You said that you were content and ready to go, that you had lived a good life and had no regrets. You weren't just saying that. We take you at your word, because your word was always good. And you were a man of sincerity. The innumerable fire signs that Rabbi Kentof constructed, and God only knows how many Shabbatonim, they burnt spectacularly for a few minutes, before dying out, leaving behind only the darkness. But when you live as a fire sign, the light you generate remains bright and undimmed. You, Dov, kindled a spark in so many. You are truly Ner Hashem. So on a quiet night, maybe we will hear the faint echo of a harmonica. Maybe we will see a distant bonfire in our mind's eye. But this much we know. As Rabbi Kentof's journey reaches the end of its earthly road, it is as simple as this. Because he lived, we are better. And when it comes down to it, what else really matters? Yehi zichro baruch, Yedidenu Umorenu, Harav Dov ben Pinchas HaKohen Bechana. Your memory shall always be for a blessing, teacher, and friend. Amen. I'd like to call on Alina to share words of her own.
First, I want to thank you so much for coming. It's an honor for him and for me. I want to tell you things that you do not know. We lived in the same city, Netanya, since childhood, but we did not have anything to do with each other. When Dov went to the army, the Navy, I was bat mitzvah. When you are younger in 6 years from each other, it seems like a very long time when you're young. Now, it works fine. Years later, when I was a student at the university, my very good friends wanted me to join them in a classical music club that was given by Dov Kentof. I was not interested, but I went anyway. Once, then I stopped. Netanya was a small town, so one day I met Dov on the street. He asked me, "Why aren't you coming again to the music club?" I said, "To tell you the truth, I'm not that interested in your classical music. And also, I have a lot of homework and a lot of reading to do." To which she responded, "So, you could come with your homework, and you do your work, and we will be listening to music. That way, you will not be by yourself." Good idea, I thought. I joined my good friends. I finished my homework. Then, I finished the music club. It fell apart. And then, our romance started. Romance, in English. Half a year later, Dov left for the US, and our love affair continued through letters. We wrote each other 5 letters a week. We got to know each other and became very connected. It was painful time, meaningful time, lonely and exhilarating time, and it lasted for 1.25 years. Then Dov proposed in a letter. Instead of saying yes, I printed invitations. I mailed him an invitation to his wedding. He got it when he was in camp. And he came. We got married in Netanya. Next day, Dov received an order from the army, from the Navy, to come for reserve, only in Israel. We both went together. They took one look at me and they said, "Go, Mazel Tov," and they excused his service. It took another half a year before I received my visa that allowed me to come. Shame that I did not know about the open borders in Mexico. Dov was my best friend, my soulmate. We did everything together, even working at the Jacksonville Jewish Center. I feel like I lost a limb. I will always miss his goodness, his love of adventure, his love of people, his wonderful sense of humor, always willing to help anyone and everyone. Every morning, when he laid his tefillin, he would pray with great kavanah, with great intention. He would say the Modani. He would thank God for his life. He would go through the short version of the prayer, but then he would put the book down. He would close his eyes. He put his hands on his eyes to cover them, and he would pray for many of you. For those of you that were sick, for those of you that he knew that had problems, for his children, for our children, I should say, and grandchildren. That was his longest prayer, and he would do it daily. Dov believed that ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, is the most important mitzvah. That relationship with others are God's gift to us. He also believed, Ezehu hagibor ha'ofech son'o le'ohavo. Who is the brave one? The one who can turn his enemy to his friend. A hero is one who can turn his enemies to his friend. We are a mirror, and when we show understanding and love to others, then others will do it as well, most of the time. Before Dov left this world, he was in pain. I told him, Dov, you can go. Get off this train. This is the last station. You have my permission, your children's permission. Don't linger. You have a world full of adventure awaiting you on the other side. You have a large family there and friends waiting to greet you. Go in peace. Do not worry about us. We will be fine, Dov. Go in peace. Be happy. We shall miss you. But I will meet you soon. Shalom, my love, my best friend.
Gil?
How can I speak after that? My Aunt Ruti and Uncle Ori, my dad's brother-in-law and sister-in-law, They sent me this. They put it together in Hebrew and translated it to English. Dear Dove, how can we accept your absence when your very sharp existence is right in front of our eyes? Your young, vital, and radio voice, your beautiful and sporty look, your pleasant manners and the good atmosphere you induce in every encounter. The heart is broken just thinking we will not speak anymore, not see each other anymore. Despite the fact that a sea and a continent put us apart, your presence is still a hard fact. In every visit to the market, we say that if Dove had seen those eggplants, he would become crazy and instantly think what a marvelous eggplant salad he could make out of it. So vivid is the journey we had together in America around 4 years ago. The joyful evenings around the campfire, your magical harmonica playing, and then playing together with Shuki and Gil. So much humor we had in that trip and so much intimacy. We felt lucky to have you all and having such a magnificent brother-in-law, so funny, so warm, and so humble. The world will keep on turning. Time will go on. But a single radiant and bright spot, warm and kind, will keep turning with it in the times to come, reminding your next generations that there was in this world a radiant and special man whose blessed light will never be turned off. We love you, Ori and Ruti. And I'd like to tell you a story about my father. Microphone? Okay. My sister and my mom were going to Israel, so my father decided that he and I would go on a camping adventure in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. I was about 14 years old at the time, and my dad was in his mid-40s in the prime of his life. We began our trip with a backpacking experience, hiking in the forest along a lake, and it was a beautiful, cool morning. And for whatever reason, my backpack just didn't feel good. It didn't fit right. We began walking. There was this bar in the backpack that kept digging into my mid-back, and no matter how we tried to adjust the strap on the pack, it still put pressure on my mid-back between my shoulder blades, and I started to complain like a sissy. Every 100 yards or so, I would stop and say, Abba, it still hurts. The pack is still digging into my back. So he said, okay, stop. He took several items out of the pack. Food, the pots and pans, and he put them into his pack, and on we went. The complaining continued every 100 yards or so, and gradually his pack became larger and larger, now carrying 2 sleeping bags, all the pots and pans, all the food, the water, the rope, the tarp, everything. His pack was literally 3 feet taller than his head. I was carrying just an empty pack that weighed near nothing. I continued to complain. Finally, my dad said, stop. So I did. He took the pack off my back and he hung it on a tree right there along the trail. And on we went. My dad carrying about 50 pounds of equipment piled up to the sky, and I'm strolling behind him carrying nothing. My dad never complained. He was always cool, always saw the good in everything and in every person. He always made it clear that the most important thing is kindness to others. He never met anyone who didn't quickly become a friend. My father had a magnetic effect on people. Everyone loved him. I saw that anytime we went somewhere together. I got to experience that love each time I was with him or called him on the phone for advice. He really was the world's greatest father. But you know, I'm sure his soul is looking down upon us now. And he's saying, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Everything is going to be okay.
Tali will share some words of love and her thoughts now.
This is so hard. One of my father's favorite movies is Dances with Wolves. Have you seen it? He fell in love with the landscape, the depth of the characters, and of course the oneness with nature. It's one of the reasons that I chose to move to South Dakota 6 months ago, to the exact town where Dances with Wolves was filmed. Over the last 6 months, I spoke with my Abba on the phone almost every day, and we had very long conversations. He wanted to know, what's the weather in South Dakota? Where are you hiking? What's happening in South Dakota? How is your governor? He had a big crush on Kristi Noem. No matter what weather I described to my father on the phone, he would say, "Oh, how beautiful." I would tell him it's snowing 10 feet of snow outside. "Oh, how beautiful." "Abba, it's hailing. Big stones of hail are coming down. Oh, so beautiful." "Abba, it's 50 degrees, it's cloudy. You can't see anything, you can't see the hills." All was beautiful to my father. He loved hearing about my adventures. He was so thrilled to hear how I was living, that through everything going on in this world now, I was living and I was experiencing life. "I think it's just great," he told me. For his birthday in April, I sent him a mounted picture I took at Custer State Park. I was driving through the park in Wildlife Loop, and a buffalo came right in my path, blocking my car. It was snowing outside, -16 degrees, and there was this buffalo that stopped in my path and just looked at me, inquisitively, stared at me. If you've seen Dances with Wolves, you know the name of the buffalo by the Lakota, right? Tatanka. In Native American culture, every animal represents a symbolic spirit that teaches us a lesson. The buffalo spirit, it symbolizes bravery, kindness, strength, and respect. It represents the earth. It's deeply grounded. It walks a sacred path with a knowing that nature is a holy space. The buffalo spirit animal teaches us to live a meaningful, harmonious life with gratitude. In fact, the buffalo's mantra, what it says and speaks to us, is count your blessings and always have an attitude of gratitude, which brings forth the true abundance of life. The buffalo spirit guides us, too, on an ongoing deep relationship with the Great Spirit, with all of creation, with nature, and oneself. My father is Tatanka. I knew the possibility of my Abba visiting me in South Dakota were pretty slim considering his age at 87, with the way traveling is now. And yet, I was just here 6 weeks ago visiting my family. And my dad, as we were sitting at the table at breakfast, was saying, "Let's map out a camping trip. Ima and I will come, I'll map out a camping trip. We're gonna camp along the way, in tents.
in a tent, to come to South Dakota to see South Dakota, to camp in a tent at 87 years old. Nobody but my dad. And here we are now, just 6 weeks later, and I made it back just in time. I had a moment with my Abba the other day, holding his hand in the hospital and saying goodbye. And he said to me, "Of everyone, I worry about you the least, because you live an adventurous life. You put experiences above things." My father gave me this newfound sense of adventure, my love for the outdoors, hiking, camping, my passion for classical music. All these gifts are from him, and I'm so grateful for these gifts. I'm so grateful. I had such a wonderful, beautiful father. I told my Abba as I held his hand that he would be with me every time I play Chopin, that every hike I take through the Black Hills, the land of dances with wolves, my adventures will be his adventures, and the two of us will be together, the two of us and the wind. Stands with fists, says in the movie, "My place is with you. I go where you go." And that's my father's ruach. He will go where I go. I realize it's not just that I lost my father. As I look around, a large tribe lost its chief, and we will feel the magnitude of his absence forever. I know my father would not want us to grieve. He would encourage us to live life. He would tell each of us to go outside and connect with nature, to feel the wind, to go camping, and to be together. Value each other, friendships, family, and the great Ruach. As Kicking Bird said in Dances with Wolves, "Of all the trails in this life, there is one that matters most, and it is the trail of a true human being." My father spent his whole life on this trail. He was the best human being.
I'd like to invite Zach and Lauren.
All right. Printer ran out of ink. Worst possible time, so. There were rules in synagogue kickball, rules you probably weren't aware of before. For brevity, I'll stop short of naming them all. That you should know the rules of the game itself deviated daily, often a pastiche of multidisciplinary athletics, calisthenics, hooked on phonics, and plain silliness. On one day, the kicker, upon making contact with the ball, might have to shout "Kadima" before running to my empty lunchbox, place securely down some haul, some measure of feet, before spinning their body around a plastic baseball bat, their forehead pressed against the handle. On another day, the pitcher might have to pitch backwards between their legs, granny style, while rehearsing the Shema. A few rules were constant. The game was to always be played in the synagogue hallways after school. First pitch was 3 p.m. sharp. Some hallways, like the big hallway leading to the offices with the glass memorials along the walls, were off limits. Kicking a ball there was a flagrant 2. Other hallways, like the hallway with the hanging pictures of past rabbis,
fair game. Some hallways were like away games we would travel to, sneaking down some quiet corridor, furtively whispering about our made-up team names. Names like the Rhinoceroses or the Osama bin Ladens. When caught by an unsuspecting administrator, the rules outlined picking up the kickball and sheepishly studying it like a globe, as though they couldn't hear the ball banging off glass doorways, and Saba shouting, "You forgot to sing Dayenu," as I rounded third. Another important rule was that of the ghost runner, at least when there were bases to run to. For those of you too far removed from your nascent childhood days, ghost runners are imaginary versions of you who stand on the bases when you don't have enough players to bat and run the bases at the same time. It was only Saba and I that played synagogue kickball together every day after school at 3 p.m. sharp. When one of Saba's meetings interrupted our game, the ghost runners would stay on base. It was my job to remember the score and that they were there. Saba did all this between meetings, lectures, teachings in his rabbinical and educational duties at the synagogue. He always made time for fun. He literally wrote discourse on fun for both the students and me. Those moments with Saba are truly special, and though I knew a long time ago that Saba and my professional synagogue kickball days were over, it's difficult for me to even process that I'll never again hear Saba ask me laughing, "Do you remember when we took up names and you were the Osama bin Ladens?" In that I can't answer, "No, I don't really remember," so Saba could tell me the story of how it happened. Because he told stories better than you could remember them, though I remembered all along. The solace I take is that I think of Saba like the ghost runners now, cheering me on at first, second, and third, while I spin myself around a baseball bat, forgetting to sing Dayenu. I love you, Saba. I will never forget to have fun, enjoy life, and make up the rules as I go.
Our final speaker this morning is Josh Kentof.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. In our world, there are two kinds of people. There are those with a heart of stone, and there are those with a heart of gold. My Saba carried with him a golden heart. Everywhere he went, to everyone he met, and with it slowly, he turned the tired hearts of average men from stone into gold. He had a certain power to him, something that you can't explain or see, but you felt it and you became mesmerized by his beauty. Dov Kentof, my grandfather, has been the single most influential figure in my life. He taught me how to play chess, build a campfire, use a knife, how to cook, which is debatable, the basics of a young boy's development. As I got older, he showed me the responsibility and pride there is to be Jewish, how to treat others in a way that makes them feel so appreciated. But most importantly, he showed me what it is to feel alive in a world that has become so departed. When I just saw my Saba 2 days ago, and he was on the bed, fighting, I asked him, what's the most important piece of advice for life? What's one thing you can tell me? And without any hesitation, he said, be yourself. That's it. He said, be yourself. And you could tell in Saba's heart, it didn't matter what you did, it didn't matter your occupation, how successful you were, the money you had. He was proud of you if you were your true self. If you were your true, authentic self, he had such pride in you. My Saba taught me to be proud of who you are, but never satisfied of what you can become. Saba reminded me not to let the small things in life bother you, corrupt you, destroy you. He'd always say, Shuki, it's not the end of the world, don't worry. My Saba told me it wasn't what you did, nor what you said that mattered in life, but it was how you made people feel. I always felt cuddled by my Saba's love. It was the kind of love that you felt when you first got out of the ocean and you were cold, and a warm towel, along with the sun, wrapped its arms around you. And you'd sit there, still and quiet, on the sands, watching the waves crash with such potent force. As the sky turned from white to blue, back to white, then to blue, knowing that the whole entire world was your friend, because he was there beside you, and he loved you as much as your Saba loved you. My heart is broken, and likely will be broken forever, and there will always be a hole where he filled it, because I will never have someone like him in my life again. But I remain confident that he is in a happier place, free of pain, watching down over me and my family, and the only objective in this life, my only objective, is to fulfill his legacy, to make this world a happier place. I love you, Saba. May your memory be a blessing.
This time we will offer the Malei Rachamim, a memorial prayer for Moreno Harav Dov ben Pinchas HaKohen Bechana. I'll ask everyone to please rise. Malei Rachamim Shochin Abba Miramim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tzachat Kanafei HaShechina B'malahot Kidoshim Tohorim Kizohar Rakia Masirim Enishmat Morenu Harav Dov ben Pinchas HaKohen Bechana Shalach L'Olamot V'gan Eden Tehi Menuchato Anal Barachamim Hastireu B'ser Knafecha Li'olamim Utziror B'tziror Achim Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the soul of our beloved teacher, Rabbi Dov Kentof, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask your love and find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
You may be seated. In a moment, we'll offer the closing prayer. And we'll ask everyone to please remain here in the sanctuary in your seats until the casket has left, followed by members of Rabbi Kentof's family. Those will be joining us at the cemetery and participating in the funeral procession. Please follow the directions of the Hardage Giddon staff as we line up and prepare to travel together. I advise you to put on your flashers so that it'll make it easier for us to keep the procession together. After the interment, we'll return here to the synagogue for a Seudat Havra'ah, a meal of condolence. And there will be Shiva beginning immediately following the interment. Members of Rabbi Kentof's family will be at home and accepting visits of condolence from 12:30 to 3. That will be tomorrow and Friday, Sunday and Monday at the Kentof's residence, but there is very little parking, and we encourage folks to consider coming here. Members of the family will be here each afternoon, beginning today and continuing through Shiva. So this afternoon at 5:30, tomorrow at 5:30, as well as Sunday and Monday, each at 5:30 p.m. And you will be able to offer your wishes of comfort in person. Evening minyan is at 6:45, and we'll be here live, but also on Zoom, using the regular weekday evening link. There are so many people, of course, who have stories. There's no way that we could have even had a fraction tell them today. So each evening, immediately following minyan, there will be a number of speakers, some in person, others on Zoom. We will have a large screen here so that folks who are present can see. And you can join us either again here in live or on Zoom. An email went out this morning just with that information. This afternoon, after minyan is over at approximately 7:15, Rabbi David Gaffney will be sharing memories and remarks in tribute to Rabbi Kentof. Again, please join us either from Ariv live or on Zoom. Those who wish to honor Dov's memory are encouraged to make contributions to the Rabbi Dov and Alina Kentof Chesed Fund or any of the youth funds of the Jacksonville Jewish Center. I'll ask everyone to rise for the closing prayer. And then again, just to remind you, please let the family depart behind the casket before leaving the sanctuary. El Shaddai, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to your children who grieve. Overcome by the pain of loss, they need your help to focus on the triumph and the joy that was Dov Kentof's life. Help them to meet grief with courage, to face sorrow undaunted. Help them to treasure what is now theirs, because Harav Dov ben Pinchas HaKohen V'Chana has lived. Should despair threaten or faith falter, sustain us all, Adonai, for you are our refuge and strength, our ever-present help in troubled times. And we are grateful, O God, for the years of service and the gift of menschlichkeit and chesed that enriched our beings and our lives through the hands, the words, the deeds, the thoughts of this special man. Amen. I'll ask the pallbearers now to stand alongside the casket and for the procession from the sanctuary to take place.
Shir lamalot Sinai le'arim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim haaretz al yitei lamor raglecha al yanum shomrecha hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilcha, Aliyah Yiminecha, Yomam HaShemesh, Lo Yakeka V'yareach V'layla, Adonai Yishmorcha Mikora, Yishmor Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmor Tzicha Uvoecha, Mi'ata v'ad olam.